there's just so many changes. Sometimes it's just really stressful and it can create burnout. And what do you do then? Our next guest shared with how he changed his direction, his purpose after burnout. And maybe you should try to see what maybe you want to do, as I said, when I grow up.
Building spirituality, family, health, and business. This is the Giant Builders with Lois Wyant.
Hi, Giant Builders. So wanted to let you know that this speaker reminded me of a few episodes prior. And so I'm going to link those below. So I hope you will listen to those. But I also want to ask you, please, please, please follow us on our social media and especially leave a comment on YouTube. It helps us reach more people. I love your help. Thank you. All right. Hey, Giant Builders. I hope you're having a wonderful day. And we have a special guest from on the other side of the world. This is Ricardo Rito. Hi, Ricardo. How are you?
Hi, Lois. I'm good, thank you. And how is it going for you?
Oh, I'm having a great day. We're having a really nice day. So, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. And let me thank you for having me in your show. I really appreciate and to be here. What I do, so right now I support tech and creative people, mostly seniors, to pivot their career, to find their next career step, or to build their first solopreneur business. And I do this through a mix of coaching, mentoring, advisory, and consulting.
Oh, that sounds fun. All right, how did you get to this point?
A burnout. It's always this
Oh.
kind of story. I I was like 12 years in tech, and at a certain point, I was becoming a bit disappointed where the industry was going. And then, fast forward, pandemics, uh, dysfunctional organization, and I got to a point I cannot do this anymore, and I wanted to escape. And during this period of burnout was the first time that I allowed myself to ask, what do I want to do from my life? Because I always got very, how can I say, very reactive to my career. And that's why through this process, I discovered coaching and I discovered what I like to do. And then 2 years later, I took the leap and decided to build my own business. That's what brought me here was a very dark moment and an existential crisis to the level that shaked my core.
I think that God allows those things just so that we will look more into his direction and find out what he really wants us to do. So that's really a wonderful journey. I mean, I'm 62 years old and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So it's all good.
Yeah, but I love that because I think that's a little bit what's behind how I think is that we're gonna need to reinvent ourselves constantly until, we decide to, it's enough. I just want to enjoy, right? But we were never told how to reinvent ourselves, right? So I think as the world speeds up, knowing how to reinvent ourselves, knowing how to tell better story about who we are and where we are heading, it's really a crucial skill to develop.
It really is. I mean, I think that too many people, I feel sad that we encourage or think that like our high school students need to go to college, they need to find that corporate job, and they need to buy a house and then have children or not have children. Yeah, I think that we don't take consideration the individuals and what's good for them and what's going to bring happiness to them. And I'm so happy that you found your happiness. So
Yeah.
tell me, what would a first meeting be like with you?
The first meeting, well, I have this philosophy, let's put it like that, which is called PATH. It's not a method by any means, but I think it's the 4 pillars of our work, which is perspective, action, transition, and harmonization, right? And the first meetings is about gaining perspective of where you are, what brought you here, and where are you trying to head. So I think it's just getting the lay of the land, taking stock of what brought us here and start to setting intentions on where we want to go. And that might be a career transition, that might be a pivot, might be just getting better with the relationship I have with my job or my work. It really depends. But that would be the first couple of sessions.
No, that's really good. So in my notes, you said there's a difference between identity and ego. Can you tell me what's the difference and how does that play in process?
Yeah, so I think a lot of my burnout, and like many other people who work in jobs of passion and jobs where we really our identity gets in the mix, right? The job becomes part of our identity, and there is the ego part. And for example, I think my ego was always very, I'm not saying small, but I always had a problem with self-esteem. So I got really a lot from my job, right? And getting this feed for my self-esteem in my job has fed my ego. But that has a problem because that if it goes well, it goes well. But if it goes bad, it's about me and not about the thing or the thing that went wrong. And the problem is that when work starts to be part of our identity, where I am a designer, I don't do design, I am a designer, or I am a coach, then this starts to be mixed because the ego is always there, but then we put the layer of identity, and then this is how we are. And if the ego is not fed, then it affects to how we see ourselves. And it's kind of a infinite loop. And that's why today I try to separate what I do from who I am, because the last 18 years of working did not end up well by mixing those two together.
That's really good because my husband and I had a photography studio for almost 40 years. So we were photographers. Specifically, we were professional photographers. And then when we retired, especially when he retired, it was a real like, oh, now I don't know what I am. So there plays a really big part in our lives.
Yeah, and I think these kind of questions, when I had this burnout, I was, around 33, 34. And another childhood friend was having a similar thing for different reasons, for similar reasons, but in different contexts. And he told me one thing, you know what? These questions that we are having is the questions that people have when they're retired, and I finally stop and then start to think, who am I? What do I do? Well, you might be up to something, because our parents also recently retired at that point, and we were like, oh, it's not that different. So it's good to take stock now.
So what does reinvention mean for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Reinvention, I think, is finding again our professional selves and finding what we want to do, why we want to do it, how we communicate that, and how we actually make it happen. Especially because I work with people, photography is another thing, right? Because you work from passion. So it's meshed with you. So when it starts not working for you, you want to do something different, it shakes to your core about who you are and where you want to be. So is this part of reinvention is addressing why do you want to change? How can we reframe that change instead of being something defeating, something that is actually a platform for your growth? Understanding the reasons where you want to go next and making sense of the story. That's why I work a lot with career storytelling, because a lot of these reinventions is just putting into perspective and in different angles how we see our past experience connecting with the new experience that we are trying to form. So reinvention is part of making sense of this. How can I stop being a designer to become a coach who has its own business? How I can stop to be, a C-level person and now start my own tiny business, or make time for retirement. I had people who had a hard time, for example, to how can I keep the last 2 years of my job so I can start preparing my retirement, which is another transition and another reinvention as well. So it's making sense of who we are and understanding where we are going and communicating that.
So I did a episode a couple weeks ago. It's a book review on The One Thing, and by Gary Keller, and that it's kind of like what you're saying. It's just like knowing where you're going to go and what's the one thing that you're doing today to get you there. And I just really love that concept as far as having a clear picture of where you're going.
And I love that bit that you mentioned about the today part, because it's very easy to enter in these processes and be like grand plans of who I'm going to become. We are going to find out the ultimate passion and how to get there. And then the first time that I talk to people, I have to say, sorry to disappoint you. I don't believe in that. I believe that we need to create a set of options that we are with different levels of being comfortable and passionate about and possibilities and so on. Test them, actually test them in the smaller way possible, so you can really feel with your whole body, mind, and soul if this is where you want to go. And I think sometimes this, on one hand, disappoints people, but on another hand, also frees them from the pressure of the choice. And the part of today is that what can you do today to get one step closer to getting the clarity you want or getting where you want and still get the information you need. I love that.
What is Ikigai?
Ikigai.
What?
Ikigai.
What is that?
So Ikigai is, well, big discussion. Ikigai is introduced to us in the West as the thing we love, we are what that we are good at, and the world needs. And ideally, we make money with it. So, and this puts a lot of pressure. And this, they say, it comes from Japanese culture, where you find your thing and you're gonna make money. It's useful to the world, and you just dedicate your life to it, to your craft. And that puts so much pressure because it's another way to show how obsessed we are with the ultimate answer. Everybody's like, did you find your ikigai? What's your meaning in life? It's like, what's my meaning in life? I don't know. How many lifetimes do I need to figure that one out? So the West really distorted that concept and it put it in a Venn diagram, which if you show this to any Japanese person, they go, I never heard of that. So I think another way to see Ikigai is try to understand how, what gives you pleasure, what keeps you going in a very personal way, right? And that can take many shapes and forms. I'm not saying that my Ikigai is people, but I was working all the time in delivery. I was creating brands, creating graphics, creating products, building stuff, right? Or helping teams build stuff. So, and I studied arts. I was a crappy artist, but I studied arts. But I was good at helping artists to be the best they can and to my friends, just because I was around and helping them. And then I realized that what I always love, it's people. And working with people is the corridor talk, is the talks, let me get you out of the office and let's talk through that stuff. This is what gives me. So in the end, my Ikigai is about supporting people in different shapes and forms. Now, I cannot put the pressure that this is my ultimate calling and this is what the world needs and I'm going to make money with it. But it's something that in small interaction and in small things gives meaning to my life. Okay, I'm not making probably as much money as I could be doing in a high position in tech, but it gives me a lot to me on a day to day. And Ikigai, I think for me is finding those things, these tiny meanings, these tiny things that keeps me going and appreciating them rather than I'm a coach who helps this and I can make a lot of money. This is my life calling and I will help other people doing that. I think it's a bit of a trap because it's always trying to find this ultimate answer that might never come.
Yeah, it sounds like a journey as far as to find your ikigai. Is that how you said it?
Yeah, Ikigai. Yeah, exactly.
Like, what it would be a step to start that process?
Just starting with no expectations. I think just start inquiring. A lot of us, picking up on what you said, we are living a bit scripts that are imposed on us. How we think in school, and then you need to go this, you need to go that, and then you go to corporate or, it's hard to deprogram from those things, but at a certain point we need to start questioning. Am I doing what is coming from my heart and or from my calling, or am I being authentic with myself? I think authentic here is the word. And start inquiring. You need to start asking the hard questions. Am I where I want to be? Am I doing the things that I set myself up to? Am I taking responsibility for my happiness? I think a lot of us, it's easy to say, oh, I hate my boss and this industry is not so good. And it's like, yeah, but what are you doing about it? I used to do the blame game all the time until I realized, hey man, at least half of the blame is on you. So you need to start really question yourself. And I think the first step is being open to inquire and to ask the hard questions and be prepared to might not like what you're going to find out in the first place, but keep going.
Well, that's good. It reminds me, I once did a training with a sales trainer back in the day, because I'm old. His name was Tom Hopkins, and he had us memorize certain things. And I always remember that he said, success is the continuous journey towards predetermined worthwhile goals. And that always stuck with me, because it's like you never hit success, because it's just a continuous journey. And so that really stuck with me, as far as like there's always something more that you could be striving for.
Yeah. And I think I don't do you find that positive or negative? I didn't got it.
I found it positive, because I think that some people don't reach for success because they think that, oh, once I get there, what do I do? But
Mm.
knowing that it's a continuous journey, and it's always towards goals that you've already predetermined, and you've already determined that those are worthwhile. So it's just a continuous journey to moving forward to wherever that success might lead you.
Yeah. And celebrating the successes in between, right? I think that's also the important part. It's my first time owning a business, and I never wanted to run a business for family reasons, past family reasons. And now that I'm owning a business, it's very easy to set up your goals and try to achieve success and just going further. But here enters a bit the Ikigai again, or the anti-Ikigai, which is I try to appreciate every tiny moment running my business, not being just focused on the goal. And I'm going to be happy when I get there. No, I'm also happy mostly at the process, because when I get there, my mind goes, okay, you go.
You're done.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how is it for you, but yeah.
Yeah. So you have some activities coming up. Can you share about your trainings and your resources that you have available to the listeners?
Definitely. So as I said, I work a lot in career storytelling. So I have a career storytelling live course that I opened some cohorts, and this year I'm going to open a couple of cohorts. So stay tuned. This is a course of 6 weeks with 12 other people where you're going to learn why to tell better stories, how to tell it, who's your audience, tailor all of those, and really make sense of your career. That's one thing. I'm also releasing your first business kit, which is inspired in this kind of your first doll kind of kit, where you're going to be able to, after this one-on-one program with me, to be able to start your own small solopreneur business, covering everything from concept to brand to sales strategy, clients, services, everything. Yeah, those are the main things I'm going to release. And the career storytelling kit is actually a free kit and a webinar, so people can just download it. Maybe I pass on the links in the description, and yeah, you can just download it and start telling better career stories.
All right, I will download those. Expand on that for me. What's the purpose of a career story?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people normally focus, we do two mistakes when we try to tell our career stories. One, we do either I'm going to put a cookbook, a novel, the manual for my AC, a map, an encyclopedia into one big book that is kind of a Frankenstein, which is this compilation of all the stories of our career. Create one single story, and we tell that to anyone. Clients, hiring managers, bosses, and then we hope that it makes sense to them, and it rarely does and does not feel authentic. The other way we do it is like, okay, I just tell a list of facts. I tell, what I did, how I did it, and that's it, which lacks the humanity. And I've learned through the times that people are either good at telling about their projects or telling about themselves or telling about how they got there, but they're not so good, including myself, to bring it all together. So the career storytelling kit, it's kind of an approach that allows you to understand who am I as a person, what are my motivations, who am I unique, why am I unique, what I can do for you, right? To give this, and then knowing how to prove that to whoever you're talking to. And for that, you need to create a library of stories, but the career timeline exercises for that, where you go through your first job in this, I don't know, summer camp when you were 12 to now, and understanding all the different roles you had, all the different impacts. You create this library of stories. And then it's about, okay, what kind of positions are we going to create out there? How are you going to position yourself for this job or for that job or for that client? And then even when you have this positioning, what are you talking to when you meet somebody random at an event, or to the recruiter, or to the hiring manager? Those have different lengths of story and details. So the career kit allows people to bring everything together, who they are, to telling a very compelling story, and knowing that if they know who to talk to and which story they want to hear and how to better sell themselves. And in the process, you really discover a lot of hidden skills. You discover a lot of red threads to your career, even when your career seems quite, all over the place. And yeah, it's a skill for life, because we're going to do this to reinvent ourselves constantly. It's also about, how do I tell this story in a different way now?
Well, that's wonderful. I've never heard of that. That is really, I like that as far as just really figuring out, like you said, too often we don't really try to think of how we're going to connect with that person, and just having those stories back there. So when something triggers in the conversation, you could pull that out. That sounds like even just a great conversational process.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And even today, I had a client, right? We were talking about interviews, and yeah, you are interviewing them as they are interviewing you. Transform that into a dialogue. Ask them, what do you want to hear now? I tell you this. How much do you want to hear? Oh, you want to hear that? Okay, wait a second. I pick up now on this one, and I'm going to tell you. So it's helping to transform this into more of dialogue. So that's the conversation is actually a nice word for it. Thank you. I'm going to include it now.
Make a note.
Yeah.
Well, any closing thoughts?
That's always on the spot. I hope that we all learn how to deal with ambiguity and how to deal with the uncertainty that the world of today brings. That we leave behind this mentality that we are growing up of, you do this, if this, then that, because this is not a video game. And I see a lot of people struggling with, I'm doing all the things and I'm not unlocking that level. Yeah, because that's not how it works. And to be able to be more flexible with ourselves, and to let our also identities to be shaped and mold, and to be able to reinvent ourselves, because the world is going to force us to reassess a lot, even more, and who we are and where we are heading, and be able to adapt. I think it's something we should all strive for.
Oh, that was wonderful. Well, that's such a great way to end. Thank you so much. All right, giant builders, take a deep breath. Find out what you really want to do when you grow up, and give Ricardo a call.
Thanks for having me, Lois.
Thank you. All right, giant builders, see you next week.
Thank you for listening. This has been The Giant Builders with Lois Wyant.